Man, this food is way too sloppy. Make it properly, will you? The cloves still have wrinkles in them. The vegetables in this stew are too hard. You didn't simmer them long enough. My unemployed husband and mother-in-law do nothing but complain, even though they don't lift a finger themselves. On top of that, when my husband cheated on me and I found out, he had the nerve to say, "I got irritated because of your arrogant attitude lately, so I found myself another woman, and he just moved in with her. If you apologize, I might come back." That was the last straw. I decided to leave him. My name is Emily Thompson. And I'm a 30-year-old executive secretary. I live with my unemployed husband, Ken, and his mother, Mimi. Ken and I went to the same elementary and middle schools, and he has been good at baseball since he was a kid. He always said, "I'm gonna be a pro baseball player one day." He had so much talent in baseball that it didn't seem like just a child's dream. However, Ken couldn't handle pressure well. He often failed to perform when it mattered most, especially when scouts were watching or during critical games like the ones that could have taken him to the big tournament. By the time he was 20, no scouts had approached him. We started dating in high school, and I believed in his talent. I wanted him to continue playing baseball, even if it was just in the amateur leagues. So, to help him pursue baseball, we got married while we were still students, and I dropped out of college. Through my uncle's connection, I got a job as an executive secretary. I want you to keep playing baseball. I'll support you, so let's get married. I proposed to him, and we got married at 21. Back then, I was ready to do anything to help him continue baseball. We decided not to have children until he succeeded in baseball, and since I was busy with work and didn't want to neglect the housework or bother him, I suggested we live with his mother, Mimi. Ken accepted my proposal. He was very concerned about his mother, Mimi, who had been living alone since his father passed away. And so, the three of us started living together in a house. For the first 5 years of our marriage, I thought we were a happy family. Ken practiced baseball every day, sometimes even trying out for teams. It didn't go well, but he kept trying. Mimi took over the household chores, constantly expressing her gratitude to me for working so hard. I was living a fulfilling life, juggling my demanding job as an executive secretary and my responsibilities at home. Everything changed when we hit 27. The small stationery company I worked for went big after one of our products went viral online. We expanded from a small team of about 10 to a company with around 100 employees. With that growth, my salary increased significantly. I was probably among the top earners of my age group. The secretarial department was established, and I started delegating smaller tasks to my subordinates, which allowed me more time to leave work at a reasonable hour and enjoy my days off. I originally wanted to cook for Ken and help Mimi out on my days off, so I started helping with the housework. However, as I got more days off, it was no longer about helping Mimi with the chores. She started leaving all the housework to me and going out to enjoy her time. Meanwhile, Ken, who initially was happy about my increased salary and time off, started to become jealous of my success, especially since his baseball career wasn't taking off. "It must be nice, Emily. You hardly put in any effort, and yet everything at work just falls into place for you. How come everything works out for you and not for me?" he would say in a gruff tone. I thought he could have expressed himself better, but I also understood that he was frustrated because his own efforts weren't paying off, so I kept quiet. Maybe that was a mistake. Gradually, Ken stopped trying out for teams and even stopped practicing. He spent his days lounging at home, wasting time at the casino. I didn't want him to worry about money since our early days of marriage, so I gave him a generous allowance, and I increased it every time my salary went up. So, he never had to worry about money and could afford to play around. I thought to myself, Mimi not doing the chores and Ken not playing baseball is just a phase. They're just taking a break, and I left them to it. But their lifestyles didn't improve, they just got worse and worse. And about a year ago, things reached a point where I started to consider divorce. I had spoiled them too much. First off, let's talk about my mother-in-law. At first, even when I was doing household chores, she used to help me out. But recently, she has stopped doing any housework at all. What's worse, when I'm busy and can't get to the chores, she starts complaining, saying things like, "Emily, the dishes aren't put away. What are you doing? If you leave the dishes on the table, it's in the way and looks bad. Wait, you bought takeout for dinner today? That's terrible, it's bad for your health. And besides, you're coming home too late, she'd complain. If I ever suggested to her, if you're concerned about it, you could help out with the housework, she'd snap back at me, saying, you want me, a frail old woman, to do housework and work? Frail or not, my mother-in-law is just shy of 60 and totally healthy. Ever since she started dumping all the household chores on me, she's been going on trips with her friends every month, be it to the beach or skiing. There's no way she's not in good shape. And when I'm being yelled at like this, my husband, Ken, also comes in to scold me. Hey, Emily. Don't be so hard on Mom. You were the one who said you'd take care of the housework and your job, weren't you? Don't start complaining now. He'd say, treating me as if I were the villain. And my mother-in-law, feeling protected by her son, becomes even more brazen. The clothes are wrinkled. The vegetables in the stew are too hard. They're not cooked enough. There's dust on top of the cupboard. The complaints about my housework turned into nitpicky and sarcastic comments. Meanwhile, Ken is currently completely unemployed. For the past 2 years, he hasn't even touched a baseball bat, let alone practice. When I suggest, if you've given up on baseball, why don't you get a job, he'd retort. I'm aiming to be a professional poker player. Don't butt in when you don't know anything. Recently, he's been saying he wants to become a pro mahjong player. I would support him if he was serious about becoming a poker pro. In fact, I'd be happy if he found a new dream after his baseball dream fell through. But that's not the reality. He just wants to have fun. So I asked him, haven't you been going to the poker parlors recently? What happened? When I said that, he told me, I've quit poker. I have a talent for horse racing, so I'm going to do that. I'm different from you, I have a lot of talents. Every time he pointed this out to me, his dreams kept changing, from being a professional poker player, to a darts pro, to a pro golfer. And no matter which profession he claims to be pursuing, he only goes to these places twice a week at most. The rest of the time, I know he's out meeting women. I realized this 3 years ago. After accompanying the company president to a lunch meeting, he told me, you can go straight home today. You should go and enjoy yourself in the city for once. Walking around, thinking of catching a movie for a change, I saw Ken going into a motel with a woman. I didn't want to believe it at first, and to convince myself that I was mistaken, I watched the hotel entrance from a cafe across the street. 3 hours later, Ken came out, no doubt about it. His hair was slightly wet, and the atmosphere of the two of them was clearly post-intimacy. I was speechless. I couldn't accept that he was cheating while I was working hard for him. When I got home and he pretended like he had been practicing, I felt murderous. Why does he lie? How can he be so calm? Ever since I witnessed the affair, wherever he says he's going, I suspect he's cheating. I've followed him a few times on my days off. 2 out of 5 times, he was meeting women. Each time a different woman. Of course, I thought about divorce. But back then, he was still playing baseball, so I convinced myself, it's just a momentary lapse, he'll stop eventually, if it's not the same woman, it's just a fling. I loved Ken who was playing baseball that much. But now, he's not playing baseball. He's just a man who fools around and cheats, not working. And playing house bully with his mother. Hey, Emily. Don't leave the lights on. This meal is too sloppy. Cook properly. What the hell are you here for? He'd always talk down to me. In my current state of unemployment, there's no way he should be in a position of authority over me. If you have a problem, then work. I'm the one paying for the electricity and the food, you know. If you're gonna complain that much, then you do the household chores, Ken. When I would say this, Ken would always get defensive and snap back. It was you who said you'd support me. Take responsibility. Don't you dare order me around. That's right. Emily. Don't order Ken around. Who do you think you are? And like that, Ken would get defensive and his mother would always join in. This mother and son duo would always cover for each other when the situation turned against one of them. I wanted to get away from these two, I wanted to break up. I even hired a detective agency to gather evidence of Ken's infidelity, thinking that could be a valid reason for divorce. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I might have made him dependent on me, and realizing that made it harder to bring up divorce. He has no life skills. He can't do housework, and he has no will to work. He's living off of me. And he doesn't think there's anything wrong with that. Living with him had reached its limits. But I needed a catalyst to leave. And then, fortunately, he provided me with one. That day, I was supposed to accompany my boss to dinner with a client, and I wasn't expected to be home until late at night. However, the dinner was cancelled due to the client's circumstances. My boss, not wanting to waste the cancellation fee, asked if I wanted to stay and eat, but I declined, suggesting, "Why don't you invite your wife and daughter instead, since we're already here?" He seemed happy with the idea and called his wife right there. After parting ways with my boss, I returned home in the evening. As I entered, I saw a pair of unfamiliar heels in the entrance. By that time, I already knew from the detective agency that my husband had been bringing his mistress home, but I never thought he would do it today. Was it a friend of my mother-in-law's? She had mentioned going to see a play with a friend today, but maybe they hadn't left yet? With these thoughts in my head, I headed towards the living room. As I walked down the hallway and got closer to the living room, I could intermittently hear a woman's high-pitched scream. Despite the bad feeling in my gut, I opened the living room door, and there he was, on top of a woman, pressing her down onto the sofa. Our eyes met. I understood what was happening in an instant. All the blood drained from my face. I knew he was cheating, but seeing it with my own eyes was too much. I ran out of the house, desperate to get away. The image of the two of them was burnt into my mind, just like when I had witnessed his infidelity before. But this time, I had caught him in the act. The thought of that image flashing back every time I saw him made me feel nauseous. I sat on a park bench for a while, trying to calm myself down. I couldn't worry about his future anymore. I had to divorce him, that's what I thought. After about 2 hours, I left the park and went home. The lights in the house were off. I entered cautiously, and found that not only was the mistress gone, but so was Ken. I didn't want to enter the living room where I had caught them, so I curled up in my room. That's when Ken called. Maybe he was looking for me? I hoped, but that hope was quickly shattered. Hello. Are you at home right now? Yeah, I am, but... Great, this will be quick then. You saw it earlier, right? I'm seeing someone else. Your recent attitude, telling me to work and do chores, who do you think you are? It pissed me off, so I found another woman. I'm gonna stay at her place for a while. If you want to cool your head and think about your future actions, I might come back. But you're gonna have to beg for it. Well, take your time thinking about it. He said what he wanted to say, and without waiting for my response, Ken hung up. I couldn't understand what he was talking about. Why was the person who got caught cheating acting so arrogant, and why did I, the one who caught him cheating, have to apologize? Stunned, I stared at my phone, which had gone silent. That's when my mother-in-law came home. She must have found it strange that Ken wasn't home, so she came into my room. Where's Ken? I didn't know how to respond, so I just told my mother-in-law everything that had happened, exactly as it was. She responded, so you finally noticed. He's been upset with your attitude lately. Honestly, your behavior has been out of line. With an attitude like that, I wouldn't blame him if he found someone else. Use this as an opportunity to cool down and apologize, and instead of apologizing, she sided with my husband. Insisting that I should apologize, she pressed the point and left the room. I couldn't sleep that night, filled with frustration and anger. Why am I the one being blamed? Why should I apologize? They're the ones with the outrageous behavior, my unemployed husband who keeps goofing off and my mother-in-law living comfortably without lifting a finger, while I've been the one providing for them. I don't remember signing up to apologize when I deserve to be thanked. What my husband and mother-in-law did was more unforgivable to me than my husband's affair. At the park, I was contemplating, thinking, maybe I don't need to divorce Ken if he changes his ways after I tell him I want to. But after what happened earlier, I've completely decided to divorce him. No matter what Ken or my mother-in-law says, I've decided to divorce. Since I couldn't sleep anyway, I began packing up my stuff all through the night. In a week, I was ready to move out. My mother-in-law, not seeing any sign of an apology from me, was yelling at me almost every day, just apologize already. But I kept ignoring her. With my bags packed, I decided to look for a new place during my lunch break at work, and that's when my boss approached me from behind. Emily, are you thinking of moving out? Knowing that he would find out eventually, I told him about the divorce. When he heard that Ken had cheated, his face twisted in disgust. I've been hearing how hard you've been working for your husband's sake, and I thought he must be a good guy, but this is just. After saying that, my boss made a certain suggestion. And I decided to go with it. A week later. I'm heading out now. Make sure you give Ken a proper apology today. With that, my mother-in-law, still yelling, left for a spa trip with her friends. For this past week, I've been pretending to reflect on my actions to carry out my plan. And I told her, as an apology, please go on a trip with your friends. Here's my card, feel free to have as much fun as you want. I encouraged her to take the trip. Without any suspicion, my mother-in-law invited 3 friends, saying, "It's on me, let's go on a trip," and left happily. After seeing her off, I entered her room and packed all her belongings into cardboard boxes. By the time I was done, it was already evening. Then, I took out all of Ken's stuff along with my mother-in-law's and placed everything outside the front door. Since it's still within the property, I figured there wouldn't be any reports made. The next day, I got up early and had the waste disposal service take away all the furniture and appliances from the house. I didn't want anything that Ken, my mother-in-law, or his mistress might have touched in my new place. After handing over my belongings to the movers, I called a locksmith to change the locks of the house before leaving the now empty home. Now everything was ready. I arrived at my new place, which was about 2 hours away from my old home, and just as I was about to start unpacking, I received a call from my mother-in-law. "What the hell, Emily? What is this about? The card you gave me has expired." I was able to pay with my card, but I was so embarrassed in front of my friends. She was furious. Probably because she was now alone after parting with her friends. It was just around that time. I tried to hold back my laughter, but couldn't. "What's so funny?" "I'm sorry, it's just too funny. I knew the card was expired. I was relieved you didn't check when you happily accepted it." "What? What on earth is this all about?" "I'm done with Ken and you. I'm planning to divorce Ken. I won't be coming back home. I've left both your and Ken's belongings at the front door. The house is cancelled, so please pick them up soon. Someone else is moving in a week. Goodbye." But I said what I wanted to say, and without listening to any more from her, I hung up the phone. Yes, giving her the expired card was intentional. To carry out my plan of leaving the house, I needed her out of the way. I needed her gone for at least 2 days. But I had no intention whatsoever of doing anything for my mother-in-law. That's why I gave her the expired card and suggested she go on a trip. She took the bait without noticing it had expired and happily went on her way. Everything went according to plan. 30 minutes later, Ken called me. "Hey, Emily. What the hell is this?" "What do you mean?" "You heard from your mom, right?" "Oh, she's not my mother-in-law anymore." "Damn it, Emily, enough is enough. I'm serious. I've been fed up with both you and her for a long time. Your leaving helped me make up my mind about divorce." "Thanks." "What?" "It was good timing for you to leave. I didn't know where your mistress lived, so I left all your stuff outside. I already told her, but you better pick it up quickly. It'll be a hassle for the next person. Also." I tried to explain that I would pass the divorce papers through a lawyer, but then the call was cut off. He probably hung up out of anger. What a foolish man. 3 days later, I received a contact from the lawyer saying that the divorce papers had been handed over to Ken. I told Ken that I didn't know where his mistress lived, but in truth, I had investigated using a detective agency, so I actually knew. According to the lawyer, he is insisting that he won't divorce, and it seems like it will go to mediation if it continues like this. I was troubled about it going to mediation, but if Ken was going to be like that, I thought there was no helping it. There was plenty of evidence, and fortunately, we didn't have any children. He was the one who had an affair, and he was responsible. Most of the property was earned by me, so it would be fine. While I was thinking about all this, I received a call from Ken. Since I had no intention of discussing it outside of a formal setting anymore, I ignored it, and then texts like, "Don't think you can run away, I'll never divorce you, and I'll go and make a scene at your workplace" were sent to me. I couldn't help but find it amusing to see my husband move exactly according to the plan I had devised with the president of the company. That night, I got a contact from the president saying that my husband had been taken to the police. According to the president, my husband had come to the reception and asked, "I'm Emily Thompson's husband, where is she?" The receptionist answered, "If you're looking for a Miss Thompson's, she has resigned and is no longer with our company." My husband, thinking that answer was a lie, barged into the president's office and demanded, "Where is Emily?" When the president also answered, "Ms. Thompson's resigned last week," my husband tried to punch him. My husband, who had been restrained by the security guards called by the reception upon hearing that my husband had arrived, was taken to the police for trespassing and attempted assault. He kept arguing throughout, saying, "Emily, it's my wife's workplace. It's not trespassing." However, since I had indeed resigned last week, the police didn't take his side. Everything really went according to plan. On the day I told the president that I was considering moving out for the divorce, he suggested this: "Declare the divorce while your husband is out of the house. And you should leave the house too. Once you confront him with the divorce, he will return home, but you won't be there. In his panic, he will storm into the workplace, so before that happens, you should quit here." I was taken aback when he told me to quit my job. "I don't actually want you to quit. But you need to change workplaces for a while. If you've quit here, when your husband storms in, we can charge him with trespassing. If he gets arrested, the divorce proceedings will speed up, and it will serve as a punishment for hurting you. That's why you need to quit here for a while. Let's hire you as a consultant at a subsidiary for about a year. Once the divorce is settled, I want you to come back as a secretary." It was an offer I couldn't have asked for more. I thought it was too good to be true, but everything really did go according to plan. 3 days later, after my husband's interrogation was finished, I visited him with the lawyer while he was in detention. As a result of the interrogation, my husband was detained as there was a possibility that he would barge into my new residence or my workplace again. As soon as he saw my face, my husband begged, "Emily, forgive me." It seemed like his hands were restrained, and I could hear the clinking sound. "I was wrong. I'll break up with the other woman, and I'll come back home." That's what appealed to me. Surprisingly, my heart didn't waver at all. As I ignored my husband, the lawyer emotionlessly explained about the divorce. "Emily has judged that continuing the marriage is impossible. In this case, with the affair, the responsibility lies with your husband, so she desires a divorce without property division and a compensation of $50,000. At the lawyer's words, Ken begged, "No. I don't want to divorce. Emily, forgive me." However, as I continued to ignore him, he gradually became irritated and started saying, "I will never divorce you. I will chase after you for the rest of your life. If you cannot sign the divorce papers, it will go to mediation, but I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes, even if it goes to court. Even if it goes to court, given that there is evidence of the affair, I think your husband will be at a considerable disadvantage. Additionally, if it goes to court, you will need to hire a lawyer." "Evidence of the affair? If you have it, then show it," Ken said with a smirk. I took out photos from my bag and scattered them on the table. They were various photos of Ken's affair, taken by the detective agency I had hired. Seeing those, Ken quieted down and started begging me to get back together with him. After being caught in the affair and still living at his mistress's house, he had the audacity to act like there was no evidence. I thought about this calmly. As Ken repeated, "Please forgive me, I was wrong," and I saw that it was getting nowhere, I said, "You only have 2 choices, sign the divorce papers here." When I said that, Ken looked down dejectedly. "Without Emily, what am I supposed to do, huh?" "I don't know. Why don't you just do whatever you like professional poker or horse betting? You're talented, aren't you?" At that, Ken was at a loss for words. Seeing him so down made me feel somewhat relieved. And since I didn't feel like discussing anything further with Ken, I decided to leave the rest to the lawyer. As I was leaving the room, Ken desperately called out to stop me, but I determinedly ignored him. 2 hours later, the lawyer contacted me to say that Ken had finally agreed to the divorce. As a result, we got divorced with no division of property, and I received the $50,000 in alimony I had asked for. Half a year has passed. Since then, my ex-husband Ken is desperately working night shifts every month to pay me the $1,500 in alimony. I heard from the boss that he is getting yelled at by the site supervisor while struggling with an unfamiliar part-time job. Having lived up to 30 without a job, Ken probably has to do that much to scrape together $1,500 a month. His mother Mimi, whom he used to rely on, contacted me last month saying, "My card payments are overdue, and if this continues, debt collectors will come after me. Please help." Apparently, she had a lavish time during that infamous trip, and now that I'm gone, her account, which only has her pension coming in, is short on money. The lawyer said that they might end up on welfare. If that happens, the alimony would be reduced monthly, and the payment period extended. I earn my own money, and the alimony was claimed as a sort of retaliation against them, so I have no problem as long as they suffer for a long time. As for me, I've been living a fulfilling life since the divorce. Being an advisor to a subsidiary means going to the office twice a week and attending a few hours of meetings, so my job is pretty easy and comfortable. Thanks to that comfort, I've been enjoying my days going on dates with my new boyfriend. Apparently, my new boyfriend had been harboring feelings for me for over 7 years, and thinking that my divorce was his chance. He decided to make his move once I was free. Yes, my new boyfriend is the president of my former workplace. He seems to have been fond of me, always working hard for my ex-husband. Now, I'm spending my days going to various places with this kind president and living a happy life. I'm not thinking about marriage for a while since I learned my lesson with Ken. I just want to enjoy these lovey-dovey days with my boyfriend.